second S, and that is on sugar. And we call this one glucocorticoids, and the predominant one is cortisol. So cortisol is the principal glucocorticoid in the body, and the secretion is in a diurnal pattern. So we have this rise and falling in the secretion. So from noon, we have a slight peak at around evening in the 6 p.m. So throughout the night, the levels goes down, and immediately before you wake up. So by the time you are 6 a.m., around 7, when your alarm goes on, we'll have a sudden spike in the level of cortisol. And this rise and falling of the cortisol level in blood is what we call the circadian. It's also closely associated with the circadian rhythm, such that by the time you wake up in the morning, so you have an increase in the level of cortisol. And we'll see the implication of that one as we proceed. But first, before we see the implication, we have to see the function or the normal function of the cortisol hormone. It's also called a stress hormone. And not that it causes us stress, but because once we have the stress in our body, and that will include both a physical stress and an emotional stress, so the cortisol come into our rescue. So it rescues us from stress, and for that reason it's called a stress hormone. So it has the following effect. One, it causes the normal metabolism in the body to be operating optimally. And then it increases our resistance to stress. How does it achieve that one? Through the following effect. So when you are stressed, we'll need a lot of energy, perhaps either to fight or to run away, or to prepare us for the day that is coming. And to do that one, it increases the mobilization of sugars from other sources, and it will dump it into the blood. And in our yesterday class, we did talk about insulin as one of the hormones that lowers the sugars level in the body, and glucagon increases the sugar level. So cortisol also has an effect that is closely related to that of glucagon. We say the other way that glucagon does that one is by breaking down glycogen or synthesizing glucose from non-carbohydrate precursors, and we call that process gluconeogenesis. So glucocorticoid and cortisol, the predominant one, also does the same function of mobilizing glucose into the body. So we need this glucose either to fight or to run away. That is one way it does that one. But it goes ahead another mile further to even mobilize other sources of energy. So carbohydrate, predominantly glucose, is our primary fuel in the body. But once we run out of it, the body will see the alternative. So the immediate one will be the fats. So glucocorticoid will also mobilize the fat. So it will break the fat that is stored in the periphery and bring it into the circulation in form of fatty acid. Even beyond that one, it will still go ahead into our third source of energy in the body, which is the protein. And it will break down the protein into amino acids, and it will dump it into the central circulation. All are the three ways in which it will immobilize the source of energy. So the other way is also, it has an anti-inflammatory effect. So there's this common drug, which is a synthetic form of cortisol. If you have been to an hospital that you have an inflammation, or you got a very terrible flu, for example, for some reasons, and there's a drug called in the hospital, which is simply a steroid called dexamethasone. So dexamethasone is a synthetic form of cortisol. And if you get injected with it, it will reduce the process of inflammation. So that drug is a synthetic form of cortisol, and cortisol is the natural one in blood. So it has an anti-inflammatory effect. But perhaps your body is preparing you that you get into a fight and you get a very good blow. So it will reduce that inflammation in the process. So it also affects other system, other endocrine system, and other systems in the body. So this is what I've been restating over and over again, that cortisol is responsible for the control of metabolism. in that it increases the amount of available glucose, either the one already available or the one that need to be synthesized. So we call that one gluconeogenesis. So on carbohydrate, it increases the level of sugars in the body, that it raises or increases your sugars level by mimicking almost the same function as glucagon. Regarding fat metabolism, so it stimulates the fatty acid mobilization from the adipose tissue. And on proteins, it causes the synthesis in the liver, and it causes the breakdown of tissues. So you can already picture this one in your brain, that we have a situation where the fats from the periphery are being broken down, and also the proteins are being broken down. And we know the muscles are entirely proteins. And all this is being dumped into the central region of the body. So we say the other function is to reduce inflammation, but there's a surprising ultimate function that it plays, that it reduces the immune function in the body. And you might not be a subscriber of the process of evolution, but handling stress is a part of the evolutionary process, that over the millions of years, this is a system that are developed to protect us against stressors. And it does that one by doing a very nice work of giving us energy at that particular time. But for some reasons, it disregarded the immune system as not so much important at that particular time, and it switches it off. So the cortisol level, beside having all those other good roles, it will lower your immunity, and this one will predispose you to infection, simply because your body decided to disregard that the immune system is not so much important and it has to be shut down. So that is the one downside of cortisol hormone. So the control system is simply, we have the stressor part of it and the circadian rhythm part of it, that just before you wake up in the morning, your cortisol level will rise, that one, and that is automatic because of the circadian rhythm. The reason for that one, your alarm wakes you up, you are anticipating a class, and you have so many classes in the day, and your body prepares you for the day by increasing your cortisol level. And that is the reason why it increases just before you wake up, to ensure that you have all the resources that you need to have the stressors throughout the day. And one of the stressors is you now sitting behind your laptop or phone listening to me. Your body interprets that one as a stressor. So once you have an excess of it, we end up with a condition called the Cushing syndrome or the Cushing disease. And once you get all those roles or the effect of cortisol, and you add all of them up, you end up with an individual with an image like this, that I can, if you're able to see it in your screen, yes, this one. So this is an individual where, because the cortisol is breaking down the protein from the periphery, you'll get the muscle wasting in the periphery. So an individual will have very thin limbs, that is the upper and the lower limb. And the fat will be also deposited at the central. So we'll end up with a central obesity or the truncal obesity. A part of it will be deposited in the back, we call the buffalo hump, and some of it will be deposited in the face. You'll end up with a moon face. The skin will be a little bit fragile, so you end up with some stripe or those marks that appears in the body syndrome. So of course, the treatment for that one will be to block the excess of them.